is actually the first phase is going to have to be adapting people to DAOs and groups and getting people involved, whether it be through education or whether it be through like activism or marketing ourselves and putting ourselves out there and going to events like this. That's where it starts. There's too much technoism. So I found that even for developers who are in school, I've taught in, I believe, like over a dozen college interns through the Builders DAO, and I've noticed that the learning curve is still too hard to understand. And I'm going to talk about some of the things that got people involved and want to learn on their own, because I've been running DAOs now for a past year, and I've influenced, I would believe, probably over a dozen developers, and they now have incubated their own DAOs. We've had, I don't know who's going to be here tonight, I don't know if Maggie is here, but we have people from Findora, which is a bulletproof ZK chain that's going to be here, I think is also in Palo Alto. Some people that we've been talking to through Algorand are now communicating with us and Bridge Builders. And our sole mission was basically to try to educate developers and communities together so that we can actually create kind of like a multi-chain DAO, for instance. And then basically teach people through this DAO. So if you want to go to the next slide. Basically, I'm going to take you through my own journey as where I started, and I would say my 3 keys for unlocking the DAO, my success in unlocking DAOs, and how to work with people so that I can not socially engineer, but allow me to socialize with them so that they can engineer. So if we want to move to the next slide. So I broke it down into 3 different keys. If anyone's like familiar with Kingdom Hearts, it's like, unlocking the key and like the door to a whole new world type of thing. And that's really what DAOs really showed me. And the first key is like the one to the heart. And as cheesy as this might sound, the thing is that a lot of DAOs involve a lot of culture. And, but when you come into a culture, a lot of people feel that there's a lot of things that you have to adapt to. And there's like, sometimes there's cliques involved. Perhaps maybe some of the developers, they know too much. And they don't necessarily know how to bridge the gap between us and communicating between who we actually want to be talking to. And if we're just selling software, or if we're just trying to sell a message through crypto, how are we going to get it out there if we can't communicate to the people who are actually going to get into it to begin with? So my single thing was trying to figure out how can we talk to people in a way where if they had no idea about a project, how can I loosen them up to understand the purpose behind why we're building as developers. So number 1 was that I had to adapt. And by adapting, it means more than just becoming technically proficient in crypto. It meant that I had to adapt people to DAO first before I adapted them to my crypto shenanigans. If I'm trying to tell people how to build in Solidity and trying to explain smart contracts on this gigantically high level, they're never going to understand it. But by introducing them to things like, hey, I'm adapting to you, let me show you why this is important through my DAO. This is what me and my DAO are going to be able to do. And Colin actually came up here and he's expressed himself to say, hey, he is involved in sustainability and activism. And there's DAOs that we've been talking to through Bridge Builders who are super passionate about wellness and health and fitness and all these things. Is it possible to have some of those types of DAOs incubate themselves with some sort of Web3 platform? It's untold, it's unknown right now, but I believe it's possible since we've come up with some weird theories of our own and we've seen some weird possibilities with Web3 to begin with. And the next thing is that you might have a really great idea. You might have a really great idea as far as sustainability and these things like this. But the most important thing is that if you're creating a DAO and you're adapting to these other people, or maybe you're coming into the DAO and you're trying to adapt to other people, is that you have to listen to this criticism that they're giving you. Because without them and you together, then there isn't any kind of flow or any kind of natural process that's going to actually occur with you or your DAO. Because if the DAO is for the people, but you're so focused as the founder on you and your beliefs and your understanding of what the DAO should be, then that's a sense of tribalism. And this is something that I've learned from the Harmony DAO and them trying to incubate 100 DAOs. This is actually Harmony's mission, to do this impossible type of thing, which is like, how do you get 100 DAOs with 9 different governors being kind of like managers for DAOs, and then they all somehow align with their feelings and beliefs in terms of the direction that they're going to take this DAO. Very, very, very hard. So number one is you have to listen to criticism if it comes from people that aren't developers, regardless. Be very open and susceptible to that thing. And then also, the most valuable thing that comes out of that when you're listening and you're adapting is that you are essentially discovering information together rather than in isolation. And this is, I think, the most important thing to DAOs. When you're explaining it to your grandma or grandpa or your uncle or your aunt, what I tell my people when I go to work, because I still work a 9 to 5, when I go to them and I say, hey, you should understand DAOs. They're like, oh, I hate crypto. And I'm like, okay, well, like, let me show you what a DAO is, right? And then they're like, oh, what the hell is a DAO? Well, I say, okay, well, me and 10 other people, we all go find information on programming. And you know how valuable programming is. And they're like, oh yeah, like, don't you make like 100 grand a year, like, learning how to program? It's like, yeah. Well, what if I learned how to program with 10 people, all trying to solve one solution, and I did that in a matter of a week rather than in a month? How do you organize that? Well, you can only organize something like that if you're, one, chill with them, if you're vibing with them, if you're listening to them, if you're adapting to them. Because I don't actually know a lot of these people. I just kind of meet them. I'll meet them here, like I'm gonna meet all of you guys tonight, but I only meet these people through kind of occurrence. So that's the trick. How do I adapt to people that I'll never meet in my life? So if you want to go to the next slide. So I had to wrap my head around that. Like, how do I adapt to people that I don't know? How do I work with people that I don't necessarily know? If this is truly decentralized, autonomous organizations that we're talking about, that means my partners are probably going to be like, I don't know, in China, what's going on? And, you know, all over the world. China, could be in India, could be here in America, all over the place, right? They might not even speak the same language. So I had to come up with this theory of like, okay, how do I create this thing, this DAO, and still feel like a family with these people? Like, if I'm still going into work and I'm comfortable with them, what are some key traits that I should keep in mind before I start a DAO? My hope tonight, by the way, guys, this might seem like it's not totally possible, but anyone can start a DAO. And I hope that these are the core 5 traits. I've only listed 5, so that you, and I put a picture of like a wolf pack, it should kind of feel that way. That when you go out and create your own DAO, these are the 5 key things, and I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out what are the those 5 things, but these are the things that you should take away to create your own DAO. Number 1 being transparency. You need to be transparent with your DAO. If it's just people. If you're trying to hide information, it's not going to work. I got a grant from the Dora Factory, and they gave us a grant to make lesson plans for our DAO. We make free education for all of our members. And I got a grant. So the first thing that I did is I made sure that everyone in my DAO knew that I got it. And then I also made the second thing is that I paid them all first before myself. And then I showed them my wallet balance. Like, that's how much transparency I needed to go through, because my trust with them needed to be there. And in crypto, it's really easy to get away with some kind of mischievous things. So don't do that to people, right? And I don't think you guys will, but many people do, and they take advantage of people, and that's you don't want to get into that situation, because crypto is actually small. The percentage of developers who develop in Web3 is less than 1% than the 1% of people who develop at all. So if you start creating a bad reputation with people, you're not on the good side of these things. And this is where it all starts with blockchain. If you want to know how to get a job in blockchain and all these things, it's happening within DAOs. And a lot of these DAOs are like super transparent. At least with Harmony, I've noticed that a lot of their front-facing things is that they're completely transparent, and they've held to that. Just one of the most important principles. Other than that, a lot of them are conscientious of time. For example, I have 5 minutes and I'm trying to rush. Your time is more valuable than my time. And that should only be the objective, is making sure that you and I are on time together. Cool. And being productive with that time. Making sure that, hey, I have an objective, I have an agenda, I need to fulfill those objectives by the end of every single week. I'll show you some of the progress that I've made, but every single week what we do at Bridge Builders is that I set the agenda, I make sure that I meet with these people, and they all come because they know what to expect. They're like, hey, Dylan's gonna be doing this thing every weekend at 2 o'clock on Saturday and Sunday. I understand that he's working 9 to 5, but it's crazy that he's doing this thing, so I might as well show up to see what he's gonna do. It's like, cool. All right, we always have something different to do, but we built something because of that. And it's also had no pay out of my pocket. It's because they're showing up and again, I'm adapting to what they want. I'm adapting to what their needs are. I'm adapting and listening to how we can create this thing together so that it becomes something that they could take. Outside of that, in order for them to take it, I have to be honest with every action that I take down. And I say, don't overpromise and underdeliver. If I'm gonna set an agenda that week, I gotta be really honest with what I'm capable of doing. I have to make sure that whatever it is that I put my time in to do, I finish it, I get it done, and that way me and my trust with my DAO stays clear. And then last but not least is being available. I'll leave that. So just being available, like coming up and showing up and being consistent with whether or not you're showing up on time. This is something that I found, again, I'm going to go with the wolf analogy, and this is how I've treated the DAO when it comes to creating and incubating a DAO of my own. So founders, okay, so this is a wolf pack, and for everyone in the Twitter space, just so that they can get a visual representation of what this is all about, is that, you know, I would say the founders are in the very back, and that's actually in wolf packs. If they don't know how wolf packs like actually operate in terms of alpha and omega and all these things, that's the leader in the back. And they have to lead from behind because they're keeping watch of what's happening in front of them at all times. Governors, members, right? These are people who are still people of the DAO. It's not like anyone is more special. Let me elaborate and say that the founder and the fam, what we call, you know, in crypto, this is all the DAO. So even if you're the founder of a DAO, you should never have your own headspace be bloated by, oh, this is mine, and it's like this personal thing. Because at the end of the day, a DAO, whether you are releasing some kind of brand or software or, you know, any kind of decentralized device, you have to be willing to let it go. Because at the end of the day, your DAO is something that other people are going to be voting on. And if they vote you out, that thing that you created has to be sustainable. So if you are walking far behind and you're able to kind of peer view at your whole DAO and it's still functioning, then you're doing a really good job. As long as your function of your DAO is just kind of gliding, you get there by doing things like this. And I put it into 3 categories so that everyone can write this down if you have notes. Is that there are 3 levels. Obviously there's foundation, which is like who you are, I built the DAO, okay? But then those people have 3 goals. It's the you, we, and then team factor. So you, and them, and us, they do certain things together. So you find a purpose, we group up, and then the team in general do something like write a charter. So on these little cards, you'll see all this work that we've actually done. If you scan this QR code, you'll know what I mean by each one of these 3 levels, because at each one of those levels, I split everything up into the you, we, team category. Next slide. Cool, and so this is the card. What we essentially have been geared towards doing is networking communities and their developers together by creating educational resources to promote growth across multiple ecosystems. We only got to this place because we started off trying to make digital trees. How do we go from making digital trees to this? Adapting, listening, falling from behind, coming at it from the approach where it's not me, it's not mine, it's Ben's. It's yours, it could be anybody's. And so we built all these cool things, and if you want to stick around for like an actual workshop and like actually build like a Solidity lesson plan, we've created lesson plans above all. Going to be doing it for a lot of different multi-party chains and so on and so forth. Next slide. So we're going to be in the middle of building an actual smart contract for bounties. It's called Proof of Participation. We've gotten this done. We worked with Berkeley, San Jose, San Francisco State, and all these other colleges, and this has been from the help of many people trying to do with one thing, which is organizing the disorganized. That is the mission, and it's people driven. And I hope you guys can go out there and find something that clicks with other people, and I hope that any of this helps. I only had 15 minutes, so thank you so much for listening to me. If you want to go to the next slide. Basically, I help people, get out their first smart contract and NFT and all these things. I'm going to be at ETH Denver actually doing like 1-hour lectures and like talking to the DAO and like teaching everyone how to make all their own first smart contracts and things like this. So yeah, and much more to come. So if you want to actually get involved and see what that's like to get a feeling for the DAO, you can join Bridge Builders, but then the goal is that you walk away, you can make your own thing. That's it. Thank you so much.